Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second session in the 6 Weeks to Flexible Work and Life Success series. I'm Callie Williams-Yost, and this series is part of an ongoing effort to bring leaders, teams, and individuals together to reimagine work and life, to not only get through this COVID-19 crisis, but to come out the other side and thrive. Producing today's segment is Mackenzie Lyons from my team. So today we are going to talk about the 7 truths of work and life. For the next 20 minutes, I am going to review, just help you review the principles of managing work and life through crisis. What were the principles that should be guiding that process? Describe the 7 truths of work and life so that you can see exactly how we need to be thinking about this going forward. Introduce the quarantine daily routine. This is a new little routine tool that I've put together that will help you make what matters happen in work and in life. I'm going to share my quarantine daily routine for the coming week so you can see some of the things that I'm going to be doing. And then I'm going to review the topics we'll cover for the next week. And finally, answer your questions. So let's start by talking about why life is side by side with work in this process of reimagining. Because you're going to want to follow these principles. Keep it simple. Start with where you are. It's about intention, not perfection. Prioritize, communicate, and recalibrate, and then do it again, and then do it again. And then you want to leverage that learning. Because the goal in all of this is to create a culture of flexibility where managers, teams, and individuals are leveraging work flexibility, technology, and workspaces on and off site with strategic, coordinated intention. And they're doing it now in this 6-week period where we have some of the most strict work, stay-at-home mandates in place. We don't want to wait until we get to the other side of those. We want to try to start now to have that leveraging happen. And then even afterwards, when this evolving, flexible new normal is beginning to roll out, because we want people to be able to do their jobs, manage the goals of the business, manage their lives, and I think importantly, rebuild the momentum of our country, our economy. So the reason these two, work and life, sit side by side in the reimagining process, especially right now, is because what happened with COVID-19 is it finally destroyed the artificial barrier between work and the other parts of life. For a very long time, we have operated as if these two spheres are separate, and they're really not. And as we move forward, you have to make sure, as you think about the way work needs to be done differently, what that means in terms of what's happening in life and vice versa. I first introduced this reality back in 2013 with the publication of my book, Tweak It. Tweak It was the culmination of many years of study of a group of people I call the work-life fit naturals. Now, the naturals are this interesting group of people that I would meet in all the organizations I would work in who just seemed to be able to fit their work and life together without having any problem. They were mystifying to me, and I finally thought, well, I'm going to study them and see what they do so that we can share the secrets with everybody else. And that's what I did in Tweak It. But at the beginning of Tweak It, it opened up with what I called the 7 truths of work and life, the things I saw happening that I felt we all needed to understand and begin to adapt to if we were going to be able to make what matters happen not only in the workplace, but personally. And I'm going to review them today because they are even more real now, and they're going to inform much of what we talk about over the next 6 weeks, because you're going to see that we're not just going to talk about work in isolation. We're not going to just talk about life in isolation. We're going to talk about it in terms of how they interact with each other. So let's look at these 7 truths. The first is there is a new work and life reality affecting all of us. And this was true back in 2013, but even more true today. And essentially what that means is we have operated as if the clocks and walls that used to tell us when work ended and the other parts of life began back in the day still existed. But with technology and globalization, they have been disappearing for a very long time. Those boundaries were not clear. And now with COVID-19, they're officially gone. So as leaders begin to think about how work needs to be done now, they have to be mindful of what's happening in people's lives. And as we think about how we're going to work, not only in this 6-week period, but going forward, we also have to think about what's going on in our life as well. And we have to be our own advocate, a partner in this process, the shared leadership process that is going to be the basis of any flexible work culture going forward. We're going to talk about what that shared leadership model looks like next Tuesday in more detail. But again, we have to play a role in that we're often not familiar on how to do that. So we're going to talk about that next week. The goal is work-life fit and not balance. For those of you who have followed my work for a while, you know I believe very strongly that language matters. And I do believe that the work-life fit concept, which means it is a verb, it is something we're managing, it is completely unique to us, and it is always changing, is particularly important in this very disruptive period. And major life events matter, and we've been talking a lot about how the pandemic has affected the way work and life are fitting together right now. But at the end of the day, it's really the everyday routine that we crave, and that is what we're going to try to specifically focus on, is how do we get back to that some semblance of a routine where what matters and what we have to have happen is actually getting done. Now, this is interesting. Consistently, I have found that we often think we are more intentional and planful about what we're trying to get done at work and in the other parts of our life than we actually know how to be. And that's because, again, we're not taught. We sort of have this default sense that I go to work, that's when I take care of work, and these are the things I'm doing in the other parts of my life when I leave work. So we're not really given the skills to have that intentional approach to work and life. And so again, that is going to have to be part of how we reimagine how, when, and where we're working and getting the other parts of life done. The good news in all of this is what I learned from the naturals is small, regular meaningful actions make a huge impact. And that's very doable. So the quarantine daily routine, we're going to start getting at some of that in order to begin to come up with a process for making sure we're having the good boundaries and the intention that we need in this new reality and beyond. And finally, together we can start a work-life fit revolution. Now, in 2013, when I said this, my intention was that the revolution is that we finally recognize that work and life are not separate, that organizations need to be thoughtful not only about the work strategy that's being implemented, but also how that is affecting life and vice versa with employees. Today, this intention is that we are working together. We cannot figure all this out on our own. We have to be in this together, again, in that partnership model. And so again, this is going to be the truth that we're going to be working with for the next 6 weeks. So to help you, I have created this little tool that I've adapted from the Tweak It practice that was in the book. Now, the Tweak It practice was, when I went out, I thought there has to be a productivity tool out there already that could help people replicate what the naturals were doing. And I went out and I looked at them all, and they're great. What I took away, however, was that some of them are more complicated and complex than somebody who is just starting out is going to be able to dive into and just get started with. So I adapted all the components of those productivity tools that were out there, pulled out the core basic parts of them and put them together in this practice. Now, with the quarantine daily routine, what I wanted to emphasize was that the action, what you were trying to do, but then emphasize that particularly in this crisis, there has to be an extra element of coordination and collaboration with not only your work or your colleagues, but also in your personal life as well. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute as I share some of my tweaks with you. So this is the little tool. And what I want you to do just for the next week until we meet again, and we're going to talk about this again next Thursday, is I just want you to start as follows. Pick a day, today, tomorrow, to look at the upcoming week. Just look at the week going forward. And then you want to identify 3 small meaningful work and 3 small personal priorities that you would like to complete in the coming week. Now, this is not everything you are doing. You are not just getting done 6 things next week, but what these tweaks would be either something that is just incredibly important that you try to make happen in a way that is effective, or it's something that you've struggled to make happen over the past 3 or 4 weeks in the quarantine phase of the pandemic that you want to try to get a handle on. So again, this is not everything you're doing. These are just 6 total, 3 work, 3 personal tweaks that are either incredibly important that you try to make happen in a way that's effective, or it's something you struggled to make happen in an effective way that you'd like to try to become a reality in the coming week. So that you're going to do 3 work, 3 personal, and then you're just going to ask yourself, when am I going to do that tweak? How am I going to do that tweak? And I'll talk about what that means in a minute. With whom and where. This is where this goes beyond time management. It is not enough to just say when you're going to do something. You really have to take it to the next level, especially in the current reality that we are in. And again, I'll show you what that looks like now. Okay, so here's an example of my quarantine daily routine for the coming week. Here are 3 things related to work that I need to really try to make happen effectively next week. So again, this is not all I am doing by any means. These are just 3 priorities that I really want to try to focus on and do well. I'm going to give you a tiny bit of context as I explain this quarantine routine to you. I happen to have the unfortunate luck of starting a construction project on my house in early February. So when the quarantine hit, my husband and I were in a tiny temporary apartment that we had rented for that period of time, thinking it was just the 2 of us. And then my 2 college-age daughters showed up because they couldn't be in college anymore. So now we have 4 adults in this small space trying to go to school and work and live. So this is the context for the tweaks that I am going to share with you now. So the first one is revising an article. I have an article I have to revise next week. I am choosing to do it on Thursday from 8 to 10. And it seems pretty straightforward that I would use my computer, but you have to understand in this current reality we're living in, my personal household, sometimes my computer, people are using it. So I have to say, you know what? The computer's mine. And I have to talk to my family and say, look, I need some quiet because it's hard for me to edit an article and revise it if there's a lot of noise going on. So I just have to ask them if they could just like keep it down and sort of go to another room just for that period. I also put on my noise canceling headphones. That's my other how in being able to focus. I also have to coordinate with my team and say, if you need me, Slack me because I'm probably not going to be on email. Well, I'm just going to be focusing on this article. And I need my desk. You know, my desk is actually a desk that a lot of people will use in my household. If it's free and they have to do schoolwork, they'll come and use my desk. So I have to be sure that I have access to my desk. The second tweak is reviewing my training module, a training module with my instructional designer. I've chosen Monday from 11 to 2. And I have to have access to the platform that we're using to do this training module. Now, why is that important? I have to make sure I'm coordinating with her and making sure we both have access to that platform, but I have to make sure that Monday from 11 to 2 works for her because she has her own reality she's dealing with. She's got 2 kids that are having to do school from home remotely. She has a husband who's working from home remotely. So we have to make sure that that 11 to 2 is something she can do as well. And again, I have to make it clear. I need my desk and I need my computer and I need to be able to focus. The third tweak is interviewing a leader for a project that we're rolling out. I'm going to talk to him Tuesday from 3 to 4. I need to be able to get on Zoom. Need to be able to make sure Zoom is working so I can record that conversation effectively. I have to talk to his assistant. I have to talk to my assistant. And I need to actually talk to my family again and just say, look, this is an important interview. I really would rather you try not to interrupt it. I mean, clearly, if it happens, it's fine. but let's try to keep it quiet so that I can get through it in a way that is most effective for both me and the person that I'm interviewing. And again, I need my desk. I need to be at my desk. So those are my 3 tweaks, part of my quarantine daily routine for the coming week. Now, personally, this is really where you want to look at some of those things that will help you be your best emotionally, mentally, physically, especially right now, which is a stressful time. So here are 3 things I really want to try to make happen. In 2017, I started this odd little routine that has brought me great comfort and has actually turned into a little bit of a social media thing for me in my personal social media sphere. It's called Flowers by My Bed. And I started doing it when my husband had a job out of town, and I wanted to make myself happy. When I walked in to go to bed at night, I'd see a little thing of flowers and it made me smile. So each week at the grocery store, I grab the sale flower bouquet, come home, break it up, put it into 2 little vases, and one of them becomes Flowers by My Bed. I've been struggling to do that because my grocery store routine is all messed up. So I am going to this week go to the grocery store on Tuesdays at 8 a.m., which is when I go because it's after the senior hours at my grocery store. And I'm going to drive there. I'm obviously coordinating with myself, but also my calendar because I won't be back before 9:30 where I can have meetings. And I'm going to go to the grocery store and I'm going to get my flowers to do my Flowers by the Bed. I'm sharing a tweak with you that I did this past week that has actually given me much pleasure, but I'm going to share it with you today to give you an example of how a work and a life tweak can overlap. So in this new temporary space, my workspace is open to the living area. It's a cubby, but it's open. And I have a senile dog, older dog, who is not adjusting to this new life reality we have very well. So what she'll do is she'll sit 10 feet away from me and bark at me if she can see me sitting at my desk. So I decided I needed to get a screen. And last week I sat down, Wednesday, I sat down 5 p.m. and I said, you know what, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to get this screen because a lot of places were not delivering. And I finally found a screen at Wayfair. It has been delivered. You can a little bit see it. If I tilt my screen this way, you can see the white screen. It's made all the difference. My dog is not barking at me. I feel like my work and my life are a little bit separate. It's made me a lot happier. So again, that's a tweak I did last week, but one that, if I hadn't done it, I would have done this week. And the final is exercise. I don't know about all you, but exercise has been really tricky for me in this quarantine period. I am somebody who goes to the gym, and without the gym, I'm a fish out of water. I can't seem to figure out how to make it happen. So this week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m., I'm committed to going online and trying to find a class that I can deal with and make happen. I'm going to go to the Y. My local Y supposedly is updating some good classes, so I'm going to see if maybe I can find one there. So those are my quarantine daily routine tweaks for the coming week. I'm going to commit to them. And if you could just start this week by finding the 3 work, the 3 life, and then doing the how, where, when, and with whom, we're going to take it to the next level next week. So next week, what are we covering? Well, Tuesday, we are getting into what this shared leadership model that is the foundation of a flexible work culture. What does that look like? What does it entail? And why in this particular crisis, it has to be a combination of trust, performance, and empathy in order to make that happen. And then on Thursday, we're going to talk about boundaries. You've started with your daily quarantine routine, and now we're going to take it to the next level and understand how to use that to start to think about your boundaries between work and life, and then why it really does have to be about intention and not perfection. If there is one wonderful thing I learned from the Work Life Fit Naturals, it is that. It is about what you're trying to do and not making the bar an unrealistic perfect. You really get a lot farther that way. So with that, any questions, Mackenzie, that people want to ask?
I do not have any questions for you.
Okay.
Anybody wants to drop a question in the chat, that would be wonderful.
I have a question for everybody out there. What would be a small, meaningful action or priority that you would want to make happen next week? One that is really important to try to do well, or one that you've really just struggled to make real over the past few weeks as we've been in this most extreme period related to the pandemic? What might one of those be? I'm very curious. Is there anybody? Mackenzie?
Yes, go to bed earlier, a regular walking routine. Emily is speaking to my heart with taking time to read.
Oh, yes, that is so great. Going to bed earlier, having a regular walking routine, and finding time to read. Okay, so those are all things you could put on your daily quarantine routine tool and start to think about how, when, and where, and with whom you can make that happen. And, you know, it's funny, when there are no boundaries between work and the other parts of life, I do hear a lot from people that sleep is an issue. And I'll be curious next week. Come back next week and tell me how that went, because I will share with you next week what I've heard over the years people have done in order to make that happen. But I want to see what worked for you, and we will be sure to come back to that. But good luck. I want to hear from you next week. I do. Anybody else, Mackenzie?
A lot of people are mentioning exercise.
Excellent. Exercise. Oh my gosh. So what does some people think? Does anybody want to say what they think they're going to try to do for exercise, what that's going to look like? Not having the gym is tricky. I think it's tricky. But at least we're able to get outside. That's what I'm finding is helping me a little bit. But
so Callum mentions that working out really early in the morning or later in the evening is working better.
okay.
Kieran wants to stay connected with existing clients.
Yes.
To see what value they can add. Caitlin has a great idea, taking a lunch break, checking in with the kids.
Yep. Okay. Write those all in your tools. And then next week, I want to hear how it went. I want to hear what you did in order to make that happen. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put on Twitter, I'm going to put quarantine daily routine, the hashtag, and also work life fit. And I will be sure each day to share one that I'm doing. And maybe you guys would be willing to do that as well. And we can kind of communicate during the week and keep each other on track. So anybody else?
Walk and talk meetings is a great idea.
Oh, yes. That is a great idea. You know what that's called? Seriously, this is called a power tweak. A power tweak is when you do two things at the same time. And there are even people I know, every now and then I've heard of a triple tweak. I've never heard of a quadruple tweak, but a triple tweak I've heard of, where people have done three things at the same time. But what you're describing is a power tweak, and that is great. Work and exercise. Very smart. I look forward to hearing how that worked out for you. Anybody else?
Joanna is sharing her writing goals.
Oh, good.
She's inviting collaborators and Coalition for Science Communication. Next week, she's having a written piece done by Tuesday. She's already making a plan about what time and where she's doing it.
Great. Good. I want to hear how that goes. I do. I'm rooting for you. We're going to make it happen. This is great. Good. Anything else?
Just, again, more walking time, scheduling that in the calendar. And Emily did share that she's right now finding great online courses, exercises, so she can do that from home.
Okay, good. You know what, Emily, if you feel like sharing those with me, that would be awesome, because I am struggling. I got to be honest with you. I have not found any I love. So I would be appreciative of any information that you could give. We have time for one more.
Kieran has a great question about some tweaking that we can do. What skills can be thought of to do with children and work together?
Yeah. So this is going to the sort of unique situation that parents are finding themselves in now. I don't know your specific situation, but what I would say is what I've heard from other parents, and every situation is so unique. That's why when next week we come back together, if you are a parent and you do have the issue of trying to combine your children and doing your work, if you can share what you're doing, it's really helpful, because everybody's so different. But what I'm hearing is it really is helpful to try to schedule when that's happening. And if you have a partner, coordinating with your partner as to when you're on, when they are on. If you don't have a partner, again, just trying to put some, intention around when you're going to sit down with your kids and when you're going to focus on work, when you're going to, help them be active with play, when you're going to keep them busy doing something else so that you can focus when you're finding your focus time is. That would be very, very helpful. But the one key thing I'm hearing people say is you got to give yourself a break. If it doesn't happen exactly how you have planned it, it's really important. I don't know if you know Manoush Zamarotti. She is the host of the TED Radio Hour on NPR. She happens to be a friend and she's great. And she said this last week on her show. Her metric of success at the end of the day is if her kids' eyes have just shined once. She sort of was letting everything go except for making sure that once a day her kids are just feeling good and connected with her. So a lot of this also has to do with how we're managing our expectations to be intentional but not perfect. So that's a little bit of a long way of saying, try something this week. Let's share with each other next week, and be good to yourself and just, try. Anybody else?
I think that's it. We've had a few repeats.
Right.
Lisa's going to work on her office skills like Word, PowerPoint, Excel. She's going to really working on that.
Perfect. Great. Good. Okay. So next week, let's come back. Let's regroup. Let's see how we did. And we're going to actually take that quarantine daily routine to the next level. All right. So before I say goodbye, I'm going to reiterate what I'm going to reiterate over and over the 6-week period of time. We can do this. This is not an easy period. I believe this is our Rosie the Riveter moment for us to not only get through this 6-week period, where again, some of this more intense safe at home mandates are still in place, but as we begin to evolve into the new flexible normal, we really can figure this out. We can partner leaders, managers, teams, and all of us individually to really reimagine what work looks like and also how we manage our lives. So with that, I ask you to join me again next week. Until then, stay safe, and we really can do this. So have a good one, everybody, and thank you very much.